Do you want to jump right in? Just do it.
Let's do it, man.
Cool. Well, I'll start with a compliment. I loved your guys' website. I think it's awesome, beautifully designed, very transparent. I immediately land on there and know exactly what I'm getting into as far as price, timelines, that whole thing. But I think some founders are a little bit intimidated or scared sometimes to be overly transparent on their website. They would rather have people jump on a call and then explain their pricing, timeline, etc. Can you talk a little bit about the intention behind the website design? Is that something that you've always done? And then on top of that, we'd just love to hear any results, if anything, that you've noticed from the more transparent website.
Yeah, for sure. So it's very much a business model question, especially if we're talking about like service providers. We started the business with the goal of having it be more of a, you could say, productized service. Mm-hmm. So selling the same thing over and over to the same type of customer. That's kind of the secret sauce for not only the business itself, but for the content that we create. Because if you keep doing the same project over and over again, you gain such deep understanding of the problem space and the way that the trends, and you see these different patterns across all these companies, which just makes you such an expert, right? Like, I'm not an expert in a lot of things, but I can say that I am an expert in B2B product positioning because me and my co-founder have positioned more B2B software companies than anyone else in the whole world. So I think we actually hold the record of the amount of companies from any consultant. So I can say with like pretty good validity, like, I really understand this. So given that being the kind of structure of how the business is built, it just becomes a natural corollary to say, how do we make it even easier for people to understand what it is that we do, want to buy from us, and not have to go through all these hoops? If you have a custom service business, you can't do that. And it's not that they're hiding their prices, is that they don't even know what the scope of the project is to be even able to give a price. So most consultants and people in our boat have to do some level of discovery, as they call it, where they meet with you and they hear about your problem, and then they think about what would it take to solve this problem, and then they loosely match that with the resourcing, like, who do I have on the team that could do this? And they build out this big custom scope, this proposal, they pitch it. And it's this really long process, right? It's like sometimes months before people actually buy. And yes, when you go custom, you can solve maybe more interesting problems. Each one, you could maybe charge more per project. But there's a lot of drawbacks too, right? The fact that it is so much harder to buy. People don't really know if you'll be able to solve their specific problem, and it's likely that you've never solved their exact problem before. So for us, putting it on the website, we're primarily doing it so that when we take sales calls, they are really easy. And, we will get on calls with people and they will say, I know exactly what you do. I know exactly what it costs. I have the exact problem that you solve, and I would like to pay you. So where do I sign? And we're like, great. And we've even had people buy without even a call, right? They're like, I want to buy. Do I still need to meet with you? And I'm like, only if you want to. We could hang out and say, hey,
maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And like, it's not, we're not selling like a super cheap service, right? It's like, we basically sell the same service at 3 tiers. It's 10K, 20K, or 30K, depending on the size of the company, but it's the identical service. Mm-hmm. And so, people sending basically 10 grand to effectively a stranger, but who doesn't seem like a stranger to them because they've seen us posting about it. We are seen as such experts in the space. Mm-hmm. So it's all trade-offs. It's whatever type of business you want to run. But for us, that's what we wanted to do.
Yeah. Did you guys, just out of curiosity, did you start on the custom path and then go to productize, or were you guys like from day one, we're doing a productized service?
Me and my co-founder, we met at a custom service agency. So we were both employed by another agency, and they did basically custom scope for every project over a variety of different types of clients, very different deliverables. One time, I think we tried to categorize how many different services we had delivered, and it was something like over 300. So like imagine having like, a e-commerce store with 300 different items,
Yeah.
But it's not even e-commerce, right? It's like people and time and different projects and stuff. Yeah. And just seeing that was like, this is crazy. Like, this is so, inefficient and low margin. And obviously though, like, you can make it look good by having really big revenue, but then the actual profit is so small in comparison, where if you do the same thing over and over again, you could just get so much faster at the delivery because you're getting more efficient. And then as you get faster, you're actually getting better, so you can charge more. So it's like one of the only business models where over time the margin gets bigger rather than smaller, right? Like where it's so much of the other one is like it gets worse. As you get larger, you have to start adding in managerial layers, right? Like, well, this person, they're not even doing client work. They're just overseeing people. And that's going to shrink your margin and stuff. But like, we're doing the same projects that we were doing 4 years ago. We used to charge $3,000 for it, and it would take us 40 hours. The initial ones were horrific, right? The hourly rate. Now we're able to do the same thing, in maybe 12 hours, and we're charging $30,000 for it. So the trade-off to us is like pretty powerful.
Well, and you guys have gotten so good at it that the time to value is so much quicker for that customer as well.
Totally.
Then I want to talk about the just great job you guys have done creating content and creating noise. Because now, as you mentioned, people don't even feel like they have to jump on a call with you sometimes because they already feel like they have a relationship built with you. And something that you've mentioned is targeted content you found can help reach more than outbound sales could. Can you hit more on that topic?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, if you think about what really makes a segment want to buy something, it's going to be some sort of internal behavior, something that would be hard to see from the outside. So outbound sales is good because you can kind of always do it, but the problem is you're always using approximations. You don't really know what's happening inside the walls of a business. So when you go to do your outbound sales, you can say things like, I saw you just raised funding. Does that mean you're hiring people? And it's like, maybe in some cases there's kind of a one-to-one connection, but usually it's just a loose approximation and it's not actually one-to-one. So you end up sending outreach that's based on some sort of signals that are not necessarily great. And then people will say, this is not relevant to me at all. And you're like, that's a bummer. Yeah. But the interesting thing is that if you do it with marketing, you can actually just speak directly to those internal behaviors, sometimes even internal mindset things that like they would never have told anyone. And the algorithms are so good because, you're getting in front of eyeballs, people stop. And so like the algorithms will put you in front of those people in such a higher volume than the outbound sales could, and so much more specific and targeted. So like all of our content is loosely about product positioning, B2B homepages, and all the adjacent things in that bucket. And who reads it, right? We get a lot of impressions. The people reading it are the people who are like, this is interesting to me because I'm doing it. And I wouldn't, if I had tried to build a list of those people, no content involved, I don't know that I would have got the same exact group of people that are constantly getting exposed. It's like, when you see those ads on Instagram or whatever, TikTok or whatever, and you're like, how did they know that I was thinking about this? Like, I haven't even told my spouse that I'm thinking about this. Like the targeting of these algorithms is really crazy. Yeah. So you can help that process by really honing in the content strategy and not doing like just weird viral memes or something, but really making it about the stuff that you're talking about, and going viral for that type of content is like, that's the Goldilocks zone. Yeah.
Is the channel that you guys have been primarily on LinkedIn?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, we've done a couple of other things over the years. Like we're a guest on a lot of other people's shows, sort of like this. Yeah. Right. We do stuff like this, like fairly regularly. We'll speak at conferences. We'll we'll do workshops for like VC firms and their portfolio companies and stuff like that. But yeah, I would say the vast majority of it is LinkedIn content. And thankfully, the LLMs that are mediating everything these days look at LinkedIn. So we're getting a good number of clients now coming saying, I had never heard of you. I was going back and forth with Claude, and then Claude recommended you.
No way, really?
Yeah, that's happened a bunch of times. And we've gotten people to buy from that, which is like super encouraging. Yeah. And they'll usually get on the calls and they'll be like, something you're doing, you guys doing they're not SEO now, it's AEO, answer engine, right? So they're like, you guys must be doing some crazy AEO stuff to get recommended. And I'm like, the only thing we're doing is being a business and being experts in our field.
They hop on the call with you and they're like, what's the secret sauce? What do you mean?
Yeah, the secret sauce is like, get really good at something and do it a lot and post about it. And that's kind of it. We're not really doing any of the fancy stuff like that they say to do, but I think the LLMs are so smart. It doesn't matter.
No, no. Are you guys doing mainly like if you're gonna have any image attached to a post, are you guys doing more static images? Because I really like the ones that you guys have put out. But curious though if you've experimented with video at all, if you've gone down that route.
Yeah, I've done me and my co-founder mainly infographic based stuff kind of since the beginning. Sometimes single image, right? Sometimes carousels we'll do like to get across a more complicated concept in multiple slides. And then I have experimented a little with video, something I want to do more of. Like I did a crazy experiment where I was like, what if you did the exact opposite of what everyone's doing on LinkedIn? Everyone else is like recording something like this, and then they give it to some AI thing that will slice it into a bunch of clips, share the clips, and they're like, how can I do video with the lowest effort possible? So I was like, what if we did the opposite? What if we did the highest effort possible and made it really long? So I made this video basically talking through like these 3 core positioning strategies, which is kind of like the culmination of our whole business's work over the last 4 years. And the video is 10 minutes long. It basically uses no AI. There's no shortening. And I recorded it with all these different cameras and different mics and all these different locations and edited it like a YouTube video. So like fast cuts and like, funny stuff happening and, like very practical effects for stuff. Like I wanted transition slides, but I'm not good at animation. So like I had like one shot where like it was a printer and it printed out a piece of paper with the next, the title slide on it, stuff like that. So like just crazy stuff like that. It took like 2 weeks to do, very inefficient. But edited it all, posted it, and then it did great. It got like, I don't know, 60,000 impressions. It was seen by commented on by like 500, 600 people. We got all these leads from it and stuff. So it's something that I want to lean into more. It's just, it is a time consuming thing to do it well. And I think everyone's kind of going the opposite direction of like, how do we make this as easy as possible? And I'm like, well, what's the point of doing it easy and fast if no one sees it? You would have been better off not doing it. At that point.
It almost seems like it's an advantage to do the opposite right now. Like if everybody's running toward this path of like, we're going to use AI to create content, that's going to get flooded. So what are people going to crave? It's the more like authentic stuff, like people watching the video, knowing that maybe you're not the editing expert, right? But I think they kind of appreciate that. You know what I mean? As long as the content's valuable inside it.
Yep. And I mean, right now, what's the biggest movie out right now? Odyssey, right? And what's Christopher Nolan's whole thing? Not even AI, but no CGI.
Yeah.
Right. All practical effects. Like literally the most famous, biggest movie right now is this massive, massive spectacle that was unbelievably hard to make. And it's doing really, really well. So, I'm seeing a lot of people rushing to automate content with AI. And I'm like, that's probably the dead last thing you would want to automate is the content creation, given that the bar is so high for what's good content on so many platforms. LinkedIn still pretty low, but on the other platforms, it's very high. So anyone who's taking shortcuts, probably not going to really break through.
Well, speaking of AI and shortcuts as it relates to product positioning, are you guys seeing, I mean, you guys probably see web pages and positioning up the wazoo, right? Like, are you seeing that affect people's product positioning now where they're like, man, we're having all these issues, it's not clicking with customers. And then you look at a web page and you're like, well, this was clearly AI generated. Like, that's probably why.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, the challenge is so much of product positioning is just making decisions that require trade-offs. And there is no one worse at that concept than AI. I would say most CEOs are probably the second worst at making decisions with trade-offs, not the good ones. The good CEOs are good at that, but lots and lots of business owners are like, wait, you're saying I have to make hard calls? And I'm like, that's the whole job. That's the only thing you should do. But so people are using AI and they will say, well, I think it should be like this. And the sycophant that ChatGPT and Claude are, they're like, that sounds great. That's amazing. You go for it, big guy. Like, I'm so proud of you. And then they're like, okay, draft me the positioning statement. And they come out with something and you're like, this is awesome. And then they put it out into the world and the customers are like, what the hell is this? And everyone internally was like, this is great. We didn't have to do no hard calls at all. And, nobody gets it and it doesn't resonate with anyone. So it's very obvious when people are using these AI for these types of they're like offloading the decision to the robot is so funny to me. I'm like, that's the one thing you bring to the table is the decision making, right? And that's going to be the thing you're going to hand off to the algorithm.
Dude, I could see you guys having some sort of live show where you just roast homepages that are written by AI. Like that would be so cool.
We will often do like when we do these presentations for VC firms, they will have like their portfolio companies raise their hand, and then we'll go through the website. And it's a very friendly roast, right? We're not doing it so mean, but it's like it's very obvious. Like the moment you look at it, like especially there's like 5 or 6 different core mistakes and patterns that people are always making, and you see it immediately. And it's like, well, which one is that? And they're like, oh, we don't know. It's one guy on our team thinks we should do this, one thinks the other, so we just kind of did both. And I'm like, well, that's why this doesn't make any sense. And it's very obvious. Like, and then when they see it, they're like, well, I guess that is really obvious. And it's like, it's nothing groundbreaking. It's very like basic business principles.
So you mentioned a few themes that you constantly see. Is there a few themes that you can share today for people that are probably going to take a look after listening to this at their product's positioning and their webpage?
Yep.
Is there a few things that you could share that will help them kickstart that process?
Yeah, I mean, like we have this loose framework where we basically say there's sort of 3 positioning strategies. One is you say, I'm going to go compete in a mature category and try to steal market share from the other vendors in my category, right? So you create a new project management tool and you try to say, we're way better than Asana, or we're way better than Basecamp for these specific reasons, or we're niched down for this group, right? We're project management, but we're tailor-made for this very specific group of people, whatever it is, right? So that's strategy 1. You're like, I'm just going into a mature market, like, and sometimes it's weird for people to think of markets as like being built around a product category, but it's like anytime you say like, Blake, if you're like, I'm in the market for a new smartphone, it's like, there it is, right? You're in the market for a new smartphone. You're in the smartphone market. So you could say, I'm just going to go play in a mature category and then say why I'm different and steal market share from the other people. The second one is you would say, I'm going to go play in an immature category. So it's like emerging and it's new and the average person doesn't know what it is. But there's some level of early adopters, right, who are like getting excited about it. And you basically, for those people, you say, I'm going to go and I'm not going to steal market share from my competitors because there is no market share for them yet, right? It's going to be, I'm going to go grab new customers and try to out distribute my competitors in my same vendor, little bucket, and get to the new customers to grow the category, right? Like I want to go out and pitch this new category to all these people who've never heard of it, so that when the category does become mature, I will be one of the top 3 choices, right? And there's a bunch of new categories like this, like eval software is like everyone who's doing stuff with AI needs to evaluate if the AI is doing the right stuff. So how do you evaluate the successfulness? You have to write these evals. So there's a new category of software, which is helping people write evals for AI. The average person is not using eval software, but the average person is using AI. So there's people, so you can go out, if you're one of these eval companies, you're not going to go out there and say, here's why we're so much better than all the other eval software, because people will say, what's eval software? You're going to say, hey, are you trying to evaluate if your AI is doing well? Like we have this software that can tell you if it is. And they're like, wow, that's interesting. So the second strategy is like more jobs to be done based. Like you're trying to find people who are doing something and say, we have a new category that you've never heard of and we'll make it better. And then the third bucket is really like, if you look at every category, both mature and immature, nothing fits. And you're like, we want to create our own from scratch. And you go out there and you say, a new category deserves to exist. And you kind of go and sell it that way. But if you look at your own stuff, you just read your H1 body of your hero. Is it clear which strategy you're doing? Do I see a mature category? If I see a mature category name in the first headline and body, is the immediate following description explaining why you're different than the other vendors in that category? And the answer is almost always no. You'll see people who are like, we're a CRM, very mature category of software. And yet the immediate next sentence will be like, grow your business, scale without adding headcount, keep track of your leads. Like you're like, that's what all the CRM say. So actually you're in this mature category and you have done nothing to tell me why I should pick you over the others. Vice versa, we'll see companies that are this new emerging category and I'll read it and you'll be like, what the hell is this category? And it'll be super specific to the category and be like, this is what makes us different than the other ones. And you're like, but I don't even know what this thing is for. And so it all goes over your head. So like really just looking at it and being like, what are we doing, team? Are we in one of these buckets? And then that will spark some really good conversations with you and your internal leadership team. Also, I think my camera just stopped. 1 second. Let me see if it comes back.
Yeah, no problem.
It was right when I stopped talking, though. So that's perfect timing, I guess.
I
If
see
you
you
want
now.
to edit it out, wait on. There we go.
There we go.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, we're all good. That just made me think about a LinkedIn post that I saw you create the other day. And I know you weren't trying to coin a new term you said at the end, but I thought
Yeah.
it was brilliant. The PMF versus capability market fit. And then you had this awesome infographic. Whoever's listening, go check this out because I thought it was amazing. Can you talk more about that? Because I like saw so clearly those brands that you listed.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, like they don't talk like that. They should though, I
Yeah.
think like look at these enterprise level companies, especially you land on their website and you're like, I have no idea why I should even engage with you in what you do. So can you dig in more on that?
Yeah. I mean, so this is an exercise I've done a bunch of times, like if I said to you, in a word or two, what does Stripe do?
Process payments.
Yep. Payments processing, right? In a word or two, what is Salesforce?
Oh, customer.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah,
Yeah.
CRM, right? Companies are they're sort of like analogous to like a singer or like a band. And they usually have one song that is really, really famous. Some have many famous songs, like let's say Microsoft. What is Microsoft is a much harder question to answer because you're like, they have so many hit products, right? They have the Office suite, they have all their hardware, they have, Azure, the cloud hosting, and they have, so there's so many things, right? But most companies, even the very large ones, have one main hit song, as you can imagine. So someone like Stripe is mainly known for the payments processing stuff, despite having many other products that are very interesting. If you can incorporate your startup in Delaware using Stripe Atlas, that's not processing payments, right? But in the same way that you hear a song by an artist and you say, wow, that song was so good, and it's their hit, then you say, I want to go see what else they have. And then that brings you into the rest of their discography. So the post was trying to get across the point that most companies, even the enterprise one, are still primarily thought of by their latest, biggest success. And I see so many people come to us and they say, we want to reposition. Everyone keeps thinking about us for this success that we had like 5 years ago. We want them to know us for these other things. And I say, are the other things more successful than that? And they say, well, no. I say, probably not going to be able to change the perspective then. Like, perfect example, back in, the early 2000s, pre-iPhone, when you wanted to get around, you had a little GPS in your car. I don't know how old you are, Blake, but do you remember some of the brands of the GPS in your car?
OnStar would be the one that comes to mind.
OnStar would be one, right? Any other ones come to mind?
No, man. I feel like I'm 29. I feel like OnStar.
You might be slightly too young. Garmin.
Oh, okay. I mean, I have a
Garmin
watch sitting right here right now. So yeah.
Correct. So prime example of a company that repositioned successfully was Garmin, because they were known by everyone as GPS for your car. And then they repositioned the company around these smartwatches decade or so later, maybe 2 decades later. And now nobody thinks of them for the GPS anymore. They think of them for the watch, because the watch success eclipsed the previous success, in the same way that some artists might come out like, Taylor Swift. She had a couple songs when she first started, You Should Have Said No. That was the first song that I ever heard by her. When I think of Taylor Swift now, that's not the hit song I think of. I think of one of the massive ones that have far eclipsed the previous success. So businesses are identical. Stripe makes, I don't know what percentage, a vast majority of their money from payments processing. Yeah. None of their other products come close. And so you and hundreds of other people I've talked to all associate them with payments processing to this day. And so really, it's like founders have to decide, do I lean into that or do I fight it? And many of them fight it because they're like, I don't want to be known for my one-hit wonder. Even in the sense, like, you'll meet people or you'll hear artists talking about how they hate playing their biggest song. And I'm like, you entitled, just little, I'm like, oh, it must be so hard for you to keep singing your song that has 1 billion streams on Spotify, like, oh, boo-hoo, like, why don't they like me? It's like, dude, shut up. Like, you have such a massive success with the song. Just be happy about it. And the founders the same way. I'm like, you could just be known for the thing that you are known for, unless you can eclipse it with a better product.
Yeah, I mean, man, that's why when you asked about Salesforce, I'm like, CRM came to mind, but then I'm like, if I landed on their website right now,
You
it's
wouldn't see
probably
that.
not speaking. It's some like agentic mess, right? So it's so interesting. Yeah, how do you feel about HubSpot? Because I feel like HubSpot, they're now, I think they call themselves a CRM that's like a customer engagement platform. I feel like they've stayed in their lane more than like a Salesforce. Do you feel that way?
I don't know. I mean, I think everyone thinks of them as a CRM now, but I do
Yeah.
think they pivoted, right? They were a marketing automation platform originally,
Yeah,
and
you're
then
right.
pivoted to CRM, and it was successful. It was a repositioning that stuck. And now I think if you were to ask what is HubSpot, I think people would say it's a CRM. I don't think they would say a customer engagement platform. I don't think any normal human would say that.
Yeah.
I think almost everyone would be like, they're a CRM. But again, there's always a disconnect, right? What companies put out versus what they are conceived of as, there's also like research done where people even will change the name of their company, right? And it's like for years and years and years after the name changes happen, people will still be Googling the old name. It's just very hard to change people's perceptions of what you are without, again, a massive subsequent success that drastically reframes who you are. Like back to Taylor Swift. She was a country artist, and then she repositioned as a pop artist, and her pop music so greatly outpaced the success of her country that she now is a pop artist. And country artists would be like, oh, she's not a country artist. What? Who would call her country artist? Even though that was her roots.
Yeah. Have you guys had people come to you that are saying like repositioning is going to be the thing that unlocks the next level of growth for them? And you guys look at it and you're like, you shouldn't reposition, just stay where you are. Does that
Oh
happen?
yeah. So many times. I mean, there's so many, like there's a company, we did like a very small project with them on the side, not our main positioning thing, but and this was way after we worked with them. But there's this company called Hockey Stack, and they were an attribution platform, and it's like helping what marketing and sales activities drove the awareness and people coming in, stuff like that. And they had really built this brand around attribution, and then they hard pivoted, and were like, we do revenue agents, and then at one point they were like, we're a revenue command center. And I remember saying to someone on their team, like, what are you doing? Like, what? You had so much brand equity around attribution. And then they're like, no, the opportunities in the agents. I was like, okay. Well, and again, positioning is making bets about the future, right? Like another company, Intercom, repositioned around AI agents and became thin. And they sold, I think, to Salesforce, if I'm remembering.
Yeah, Salesforce
now. Yeah. For a decent exit, I think. But again, that was like a successful bet that they made. Like, we're going all in on agents. They really did. They kind of disrupted their own traditional SaaS platform with this new agentic platform. And then the whole company went around that new bet. And then ultimately they sell to Salesforce. And, I think people think it was a relatively positive exit. So it can work. So I'm not disparaging them of this other company of saying we're going to go around agents, but they did that for a while. And then I recently went on their website and they're back in attribution, and they have pivoted back. And I think it's probably because agents is such an incredibly competitive space, right? Like now you're facing everyone. You're facing OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, all the little small ones in the GTM space that are making agents. And it's like such a hard place to be. And I always remember too, like, I don't know their internal numbers of revenue and stuff, but there's another guy that I follow on LinkedIn. He's like a solo founder, bootstrapper. He was making an attribution software called Fibbler. And he posted that he's like, we just passed 1 million in ARR, all solo with attribution. And then someone else, was talking about Hockey Stack, and they were like, well, they pivoted away. There wasn't enough money in it. And he was like, well, they were trying to sell these massive enterprise deals. Like, I'm still just selling, and the revenue's going up every month, and I'm all by myself. And I was like, there is a period, if they had stuck with this AI agent message, there is potentially a moment where, the bootstrapper eclipses the VC-backed one who had raised 60 million or whatever, because it's so much harder in that other space, where it's like if they had just stayed. And then I think they wised up, and now they're back in attribution. And so there's a huge need for it, and it is a much smaller pond than AI agents, but like there could be $1 billion company in there, I'm sure.
Yeah, it almost, just hearing you talk about positioning this way, it almost feels like once you have positioning, like great positioning, all the other stuff falls into place. I'm not just saying that you're on today, but like seriously, I just it really hit me. Once you have your positioning figured out, you can confidently go out, run more ads, do your marketing, do your sales, because like you're gonna nail it. So it just seems like focusing on its positioning is so important. Do you think that there's especially I'm focused on early stage founders, you got to go out and experiment, obviously, to understand, where you're going to play in the sand. Like, have you seen any good ways to experiment? Is it simply just like go out, test it in conversation, things like that, test it in ads, content? Is there anything that you've seen work better than the other when trying to test positioning?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about a startup, usually if you're either bootstrapped or VC backed, unless you have infinite money, you have some sort of time limit where you can say, I can stay in experimentation mode for a certain amount of time. And then eventually I kind of just have to take the bet, right? Because any channel, to really get a channel working well, is going to take at least a quarter, maybe 2 quarters, maybe 3, right? So, and this all changes too based on how expensive your service is, right? So let's say you're selling a product that's $100,000 a year. That's going to have a pretty long sales cycle because it's such a big considered purchase. So imagine you're like, all right, we've decided that we're going to sell to the enterprise. We're going to position for the enterprise. We're going to put ourselves in this category. We're going to say this is what makes us different, whatever it is. And our thing's $100,000. Okay, great. Well, it's going to take 3 to 6 months to get LinkedIn working, to get Instagram working. I mean, you wouldn't do 100,000 service probably on Instagram. Maybe you would. I don't know. But whatever your channel is going to be, outbound sales is going to take you like 3 to 6 months before it's repeatedly bringing in people from this new positioning strategy. And then you start the sales cycle with them, which might be 6 months, maybe 9 months even, to sell this thing. So at minimum, that requires a pretty confident bet of 12 months before you'll even really know. So, and then balancing with your runway of saying, well, how long can we stay in experimentation mode versus when do we actually have to just pick and start putting the engine all moving in one direction? That's all very delicate dance. And so I think that people probably in some ways wait too long to make that decision and spend too much time in experimentation mode because they discount how long it's going to take to do a scalable go-to-market strategy. And like most founders are not marketers by trade. They've never really grown anything. And so building an audience or getting the word out about their product is not a skill set that they have ever really honed. They're usually like engineering minded, very sharp scientists, math people. But when it comes to like the weird, messy world of growing a product, it's just very foreign to them. So I think a lot of them discount that of like, what would that actually take? And so in these initial phases of experimentation, like I think it's the things you said, right? It's like taking sales calls, pitching it one way, pitching it another way. But I think it's almost more like looking at like where they think the opportunity is, right? Because I think a lot of people will over-index on like voice of customer to help drive positioning strategy, which is very silly to me because I'm like, but which customers' voices are you listening to, right? Like positioning is more of a market exercise than a marketing exercise, if that makes sense. It's looking at what are the various market segments where we could play, and then what would be our strategy to differentiate within those markets, and then which one do we think we have the most likelihood of winning, of being able to become a contender, right? And so saying, well, if we put ourselves in the CRM category, we are entering the same market as Salesforce, HubSpot, Addio, any of these ones. Do we have a unique angle that makes us stick out, that we think we could steal enough market share to get us to our growth goals, whether it's a new fundraising round or whatever? Or do we think, no, there's a more greenfield opportunity here, this emerging category? And like, you're not going to find the answer to that by interviewing a customer, right? It's a higher level decision when you get to the messaging. And you figure like, okay, I'm going to focus on this group. I think this is loosely my differentiation. And you're like, I would really like to incorporate specific words and phrases. Well, great. You've chosen the market. Now you can go do the interviews that will actually matter. Versus, some companies that are really loosely positioned will get a swath of customers from all sorts of different segments. And then they will ask them for, quotes and things like that. And all of a sudden they'll be like, this is just a big mess. Some people think we're way too complicated. Some people think we're way too simple. And it's like, that's because those are two different groups of people, right? So no wonder they're going to contradict each other. And then they don't know how to sort through it. And then they just take, and then they'll also interview people who are existing customers who have used them for like a year. And they'll be like, why do you love us? And they're like, oh, you've just been such a game changer for the business. And they're like, that's the quote we'll use. And they put it in the H1, game changing business transformation, whatever. And they're like, someone said that. I'm using words of customers, so I must be doing the right thing because I'm just parroting what they say. And it's like, if I think, why do I love my wife today, having been married since 2015 with 2 kids? That answer is going to be so different than why did I initially ask her out on a date, right? And so you can't get voice of customer from existing customers because they already know you, they love you, they've been with you for so long.
Yeah.
So even that, like voice of customer versus voice of prospect, is so different. So I don't know, probably a long, convoluted answer. I don't even remember what your initial question was, but here we are.
No, that was good. And we can end on that. Man, this is gonna be so helpful. I already know I have homework for myself, and I'm probably gonna be very humbled going through how I talk and engage people with my own company. Is the best spot to find you and the company. I'll link your LinkedIn and the website in the show notes. Any other place that you want to send people? I don't know if you guys have any resources or things like that for people to check out.
Yeah, we just started a positioning newsletter earlier this year, and it goes out probably once a month. And it's like much deeper dives than you would get on our LinkedIn. That's just on our website, fletchpmm.com/newsletter.
Sweet. I will link that in the show notes, and we'll have this episode up by next week. So be in touch.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, hey, I'm glad we got it done.
We did it.
Sorry again about being late, but yeah, hopefully it's good.
You're good, man. Let's keep in touch. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.